Well, good morning. I'm going to start today's talk with a quote from Durkheim's book, The Way of Transformation. I've quoted from before, and I think I even shared this quote before, but it's certainly very appropriate to today's conversation. So, the ones who, really being on the way, fall upon hard times in the world will not, as a consequence, turn to friends who offer refuge and comfort and encourage the old self to survive. Rather, they will seek out someone who will faithfully and inexorably help them to risk themselves so that they may endure the suffering and pass courageously through it, thus making of it a raft that leads to the far shore. Only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over again to annihilation can that which is indestructible arise within us. In this lies the dignity of daring. Leave it at that, the dignity of daring. The world might call it the stupidity of daring, but yeah, I think Durkheim would get this. Why was it that I saw this pilgrimage to India to be an appropriate celebration of my 40th birthday? And I don't have any particular interest in India. I'm not interested in Hinduism. But it just seemed the thing to do. And I imagine it could have been Trisha's idea, this woman that I'd become friends with in Minneapolis. And somehow she was very attracted to India. She even had a friend who had been to India, and he kind of mentored us a little bit on the do's and don'ts of travel to India. And probably the first thing that he would have mentored us against going when we went was to stay away from India during the monsoon. But I didn't hear that. I didn't listen. It was like, well, my birthday is September 5th, and I want to be in Kathmandu on September 5th, so it means we have to do this pilgrimage, which would, maybe be a 3-week experience during August, during monsoon. So the plan was we would fly into New Delhi, and we did. And I remember it was a long trip. We went through London, traveled through the night from Chicago to London. So with the time changes, missed a whole night's sleep. So I remember just right off everything being topsy-turvy because I was just so tired. But we get to New Delhi and take a bus from the airport into the town. I don't know exactly if we'd asked somebody what area might be a good area to stay in. Obviously, there's hotels everywhere, but we also had decided we wanted to stay in a Hindu hotel. Basically a type of place that a Hindu pilgrim, if they had a little bit of money, obviously a lot of the pilgrims have no money, but there's some business people that are also devoutly Hindu, and they would want to do this pilgrimage, which begins in New Delhi and follows the Ganges River up to the source, past Rishikesh, up in Gangotri. So we just kind of made a thing in my own mind that we would never spend more than $1 US per night for a hotel room. And then we would eat simple food from vendors in the street and all of that, which again, our mentor, I'm sure, would have gone, oh my God, you guys are crazy. Like, you're not going to survive. Oh my goodness. But somehow both of us had the stupidity, the arrogance, or whatever to think, oh no, we'll be fine. We can do it. I remember being on the bus and just looking out the window as we were traveling through this part of the city and going, wow, like we're in the zoo. There was every animal conceivable, pretty much. Lots of elephants. lands, lots of big oxen, just all kinds of exotic animals, in the street, pulling carts and doing this and doing that. Lots of monkeys, lots of dogs, lots of rats, lots of life, and people are cooking in the streets, burning dung, dried dung for cooking, and they're peeing and pooping in the streets. And it was right away an amazing assault on my senses, on any idea of my, safety, which, again, I had said before, this was sort of my soul's dilemma in this lifetime, finding a sense of safety, finding a sense of home. And so here I am at 40, probably doing the worst possible thing I could do to feel safe and feel at home. Halfway, I'm on the other side of the world in a very strange place. I mean, again, I don't think there's any place stranger that I could imagine as far as the culture and the language and everything, the religion, the fact that, the sacred cow, you see a cow in the street, all of a sudden the tail goes up like it's going to pee or poop or something. And there's like right away, like 5 Hindus at the butt of the cow ready to catch and drink the pee. It's like, what? It was crazy. It was crazy. So anyway, we were only going to stay in New Delhi like maybe 2 nights, and then take a train to Hardwar, which is the holy city, and then from Hardwar begin like walking, go from Hardwar to Rishikesh, then Rishikesh up, following the Hindu trail, the pilgrimage trail up the river to the source in the mountains, Gangotri. That was the idea. So anyway, we did make it through the 3 days and 2 nights, I guess, in Delhi, and got to a train station to take a train, and that was kind of crazy. There, people are all sort of standing around waiting, not really queued up, not really in line or anything, around the ticket window. And then when the ticket window opens to sell tickets for this particular train, everybody just rushes to the window. It's just like this mob rushing to buy their tickets. And so, when you're not part of the culture, it's like, oh my God, what do we do? We just, maybe you hope you can find somebody that, can you help us, buy a ticket? Can you fight the mob? Anyway, here we get on the train, obviously, and as we head out of New Delhi, almost within 30 minutes, I'm sure, Trish is violently sick. She's vomiting and diarrhea and all this, and it's pretty amazing there on the trains. The bathrooms are spaces where I guess you have a little bit of privacy. I don't know if there's a door on the room or whatever, but typically there's not much privacy in India. But there's just like a big hole in the floor, and so you vomit, you pee, you poop, whatever, through the hole onto the rushing train tracks below you. So anyway, Trish is totally evacuating her body, very sick, starts to get a fever, and not much I could do. We're on the train, we're just going to make it. I imagine we anticipated eating and drinking things from the street, that we were going to get some dysentery. So she did, and we get up to the city of Hardwar, and she had rested a little bit. She was okay, woozy, but better. And we're in this holy city, and we find out, in fact, there's a big holiday, 3-day festival celebrating Krishna's birthday. So there's many, many hundreds of thousands of pilgrims heading to Hardwar. This is kind of what they do in their culture. The Hindu pilgrims, they just wander from festival to festival, and everybody's in the streets begging and singing and dancing and peeing and pooping and whatever. But as it turns out, because there was this Hindu festival, none of the hotels near the river, which we kind of wanted to stay right alongside the river in Hardwar, is one of the holiest cities where the very devout and wealthy pilgrims come to have their bodies burned on a ghat. You know, they build this thing with the wood and put the body on it and drench the body with this ghee, this clarified butter, and burn them. Well, guess what? Because we were not Hindu pilgrims, there was no rooms available for us. So we found this in every place we asked. No, sorry, no. Not because there weren't any spaces available. It was because we were not Hindu. We were not allowed to have a room right alongside the ghats along the Ganges River. So we were somewhere far away from the river in the center of the city, a small city, but now a very crowded city, with the festival beginning, I think, the next day. We eventually found a place that would rent us a room, and it was a very simple room. Of course, we were on a special budget of $1. And typically, maybe in New Delhi, it was different. In New Delhi, the city, the hotels, even the cheap hotels, had like doors and screens on the windows and things like that. This hotel had none of that. The room had no door, just an open space, and it had no windows, just open spaces. So the room was facing, probably all the rooms are facing the street, the main street. And so you're just there, little balcony, and then the activity in the street, which of course very soon would be constant dancing and singing and chanting and music and lots and lots and lots of noise. So just about the time we got to the hotel, got into our room, the same thing that hit Trish on the train hit me. And though it took longer for me to be consumed by this dysentery, whatever it was, it was brutal. I had never been sick like this in my life. You know, when you have the flu, you feel really, really crappy. And maybe for a day it's agonizing, but this went on for the whole time this festival was going on outside, which was all day, you know, from the wee hours in the morning to the wee hours in the night, probably about a 4 or 5 hour break, so between midnight and dawn. But I was flat on my back. I had total evacuation, of course, vomiting and diarrhea. And then I had this massive fever, and it was strange. I think it's because I had the heat stroke before that I shared in another segment. And I would learn this, that because I had heat stroke, I would always be very prone to heat stroke or high fever in the future. And sure enough, I had this fever of 107 degrees for 3 days. So I was like burning up. I was just, and it felt so horrible, like a terrible headache the whole time. And it was utter devastation. And I remember just imagining, you know, wishing that I could die, and just imagining if I died, which I wanted to because I felt so horrible. I mean, beyond comprehension horrible. I was just kind of imagining in India with the numbers of people, and of course in this festival with all the extra people coming there, that the population, you know, the death rate in India is huge. You know, the birth rate is huge. They have a huge population, over 1 billion people. But anyway, I was just kind of factoring in my mind, just because I had nothing else to do but feel terrible. was thinking about the numbers of people that would die each day in hardware. I think it came up with something like 144 bodies. And the common people, they just pile the bodies. They don't get the guts on the river. They just pile the bodies somewhere in some crematorium kind of place, but not a building, just like a ditch, and pour some accelerant, probably gasoline, diesel, all over the bodies and burn them each day to get rid of them. That's in India, unless there's another religion, Sikh or something. There's one of the religions in India where they put the bodies up on these platforms to let it'd be more in the campo, I guess, but let the vultures come and eat the flesh. But the Hindus need to be burned. So if they have money, they do it in a private ghat. Along the river, Ganges, and then their ashes are put into the river. And if they're poor or some traveler, no name, John Doe, those bodies are all just stacked up and burned. Now, I was imagining with my death that Trish, again, would be terribly inconvenienced, and maybe she would go to the lengths to contact the U.S. Embassy and try to arrange to have my body transported back to USA. I mean, what a horrible, horrible situation that would be for her to have to go through all that in a very, very strange land. Well, obviously, I did not die, but I just remember being so just defeated when I actually felt better. The fever broke, and I felt better on the fourth day of our stay in Hardwar. Trish, she was very kind. She would take cold or a damp cloth to my forehead often, and while I was burning up. And when I was finally feeling a little bit better, she went out in the street and got some of these little bananas and a bottle of pop. It was one of the safe things to drink there. I think it was like orange soda in a sealed bottle. So I remember eating a banana and having some liquid. And I had watched these monkeys from my bed, of course, there's no door, no window, watching them across the street during this 3-day vigil on my deathbed. Just watching them, it was like, wow, monkeys everywhere, look at them scampering about. And on this particular morning, Tricia had brought the bananas, and there were a little bunch sitting on the bed. And she was doing something. She wasn't in the room at the time, I don't believe. Anyway, I watched these two monkeys, that part of this troop. Two of them scampered across a wire across the street and then came down the front of our building, and they were suddenly appearing there on this little balcony. And then one of them came into the room and grabbed the bunch of bananas, took them to his buddy, and they sat there on the balcony railing, peeling and eating our bananas. And then one of them kind of gave me this look and then just laid this big shit right down in front of me. It just was wretchedly horrible, the smell. And then they scampered off. It was really cute because in my naivete, my arrogance, I thought, well, if I'm on this spiritual path, it'd be really amazing in India if I had this eye contact with a sadhu, holy man. And it wouldn't occur to me until maybe 3 months after the trip back in Minnesota that was my face-to-face with the sadhu. he was this little monkey giving me the finger, like, who do you think you are? You're nothing. You're nothing. You're a pile of shit. Yes, it was funny after the fact. So anyway, just to finish the journey, like I said, was totally devastated, defeated, ruined. I had no ambition to continue the journey to Gangotri or Kathmandu or anything. I just wanted to get the fuck out of India. But I was still so weak. I needed time for recuperation. So we made our way. We took a bus to Rishikesh, which is much more open to foreigners than the sacred city of Hardwar. Rishikesh is where there have been lots of ashrams and lots of Westerners that come. The Beatles had made Rishikesh pretty famous by hanging out there with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. So anyway, it was very easy for us to find a hostel that would accommodate us. And I remember just telling Trish, I just need to be alone. Thanks for taking care of me during my ordeal, but I just need my own room. I just need to just sleep and rest and eat and recover. And she's like, okay. She got her own room. I probably didn't tell her right away that I wasn't planning on continuing, but I told her eventually that I wasn't going to continue our plan. I was going to go back to New Delhi and just try to change our flight plan to get a flight back to the States. So she was very disappointed, obviously, and probably I even was maybe a little rude with her, brusque, but social graces in the moment didn't seem very important. I was just, like I said, ruined. So I remember getting through, I think it was in Rishikesh, almost 10 days before I felt well enough to travel. And I actually met some people there who offered me a ride in their car, a group going back to New Delhi. So I accepted their invitation to ride in a car and said goodbye to Trish, and off I went. It was actually kind of funny. It turns out when I was back in New Delhi, I ran into Trish. Like, she came back also, but probably on a bus. It was just strange. Everything now was strange. I remember getting a hotel room in New Delhi, paying more, like probably $5 a night, to get a room with a air conditioner. And I remember like putting a blanket covering the little window in the room with a blanket from the bed, so it was dark, totally dark. And because what happened in New Delhi is you had to go to the travel office and you had to put your name into a lottery, and they would pull a number of names that were allowed to change their ticket and get a flight out. And it took me five days to accomplish that. And I remember just laying in my room, with the totally darkened room, and just wanting to sleep all the time. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to. The only way that I would go outside, of course, I had to go outside to get something to eat. So I would go out once a day to find this place that actually made like a non-dairy, vegan pizza that was palatable. I didn't want to have any Indian food. I didn't want to engage with India anymore at all. I remember, in fact, this fellow that worked at the hotel, it was so funny. He asked me something about if I wanted to go find a girl or if he could find me a girl. And I'm like, no. And he said, well, I could do the same thing for you as a girl. And I'm like, out of here. Leave me alone. Oh my God. Oh my God. I remember finally when I'm on the airplane leaving India, and this airplane just had a little screen that showed the map and the progress of the plane. And as soon as the airplane was out of India airspace, I'm celebrating. Oh, no more India, bye. And never again. Fuck you, India. I was just all, it's so funny I talk about the egoic mind and the tribal mind. I mean, I was fully back in my tribal. I just want to live. I just want to live. I never want to. I mean, in my mind, I had met Suzanne, and she was waiting for me. I was going to move into her home in suburban Plymouth, suburb out of Minneapolis. And I remember just thinking to myself, that's all I want. All I want. All I want is like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Like, I never want to leave my backyard ever again. I'm never going to leave the USA ever again. I remember literally when the flight went through Paris, flight from Paris to Chicago. And I just remember when the plane, when I had to wait maybe a couple hours in Chicago then to get a flight to Minneapolis. And I just remember stepping on the tarmac at the airport in Chicago and wanting to just fall to my knees and kiss the tarmac. I'm in the USA, I'm back in the USA. Devastation, it was quite amazing. So literally what I did was move in with Suzanne, agree to get married, and she gave me permission. Yeah, I said, this what I really want. I just really want to be connected to the earth, to feel a sense of home. And so she had she had like a double lot, maybe just a quarter acre total or something, not huge, but big enough. I said, Suzanne, if you'd let me, little by little, I'll be very patient. It wasn't any big hurry. I wasn't going to bring in machines and make a big mess, but little by little, I'd like to convert this half lot, which was just a big rectangle of grass, turn it into an amazing garden. Like I just wanted to be a gardener. I'd never done any gardening before, but suddenly I wanted to be a gardener. In fact, what I ended up doing was actually starting a very small garden landscape design, build, maintenance business. Did that for the next 12 years. I spent 10 years building this garden. And actually, in the next segment, I'll see if I can find a photograph from that process. But it was so important for me after this devastation to really, really work at like making a home, making a place that my soul could finally feel safe, feel relaxed, feel peaceful. And really, it was the garden. It was the garden that saved me. My relationship with Suzanne had its challenges, and I was a stepdad to her 16-year-old daughter, and that had challenges. But the garden, for 10 years, the garden really, truly was my salvation. So, yeah, I think we'll keep it short. Yesterday was quite a long process, but the meaning, of this trip, as I mentioned, what was simply to be shown like how little I knew, how unimportant I was, it, it was the beginning of my true awakening that would show me that to be fully of service, fully useful, didn't require any special talents on my part. It simply required my emptiness, my willingness. And so, like I said, this devastation, I had no ambition to be anything, to do anything. I just wanted to be simple. And that's why I like the gardening. I wanted to, that expression I use, common as a stone. I wanted to be just as common as a stone and find my sense of home in that, in nature, the earth, the plants, water, the elements. So it was the beginning of what, of course, that is fully flourished now here in my oasis in Ecuador. But this was the beginning of that process of realizing what was truly important, what was absolutely important for me to learn, to be. So it was a great thing. It was, again, like I said, it was the worst thing that ever happened. I was so traumatized. I didn't leave USA until, for 18 years, really, until I started exploring for my place in Latin America. I didn't want to, I couldn't even imagine traveling to a foreign country ever again. So that's, I think, enough for today. My devastation in India, opening a door to something very beautiful, something very simple, something very real. So with that, I will say, hasta mañana, baby.